Welcome everyone to the Tulsa.net user group. Tonight, David Giard talking about empowering AI. We're going to talk about navigating Microsoft's tools and technologies. David, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you being here. I'm going to hand it over to you and let you do a better introduction and run from here. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Sean. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be virtually in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and speaking to folks all over the world. We're going to talk about AI. This title I actually made up by asking ChatGPT to suggest a good title for me, and that's what I came up with. This is me. My name is David. I work for Microsoft. My job is to help partners design solutions for Microsoft Cloud. You can find me online. You can find me just about any social media platform, just with my full name there. But I also have a blog where I write about some technical stuff and some non-technical stuff. I have a couple of TV shows. I hope you check them out. Smash that subscribe button. But today we want to talk about artificial intelligence in the context of IT. And I think there's a perception right now that there's a revolution going on in artificial intelligence. And there's been a lot of revolutions in IT over the years. Personal computers came about, around the 1980s or so. The internet really exploded around the late 90s. Smartphones came out and took over the world. There's a watershed moment when Steve Jobs held up his iPhone and said, "Hey, check this out! One more thing." People got excited about that. Cloud computing with the advent of AWS and Azure around the year 2000. Well, now artificial intelligence, we're seeing that as another way of revolutionizing. When I say revolutionizing, I mean the way that we're changing the way that we think about doing our business, automating our business, working with our software. What's interesting about all of these different revolutions is that at the time that we perceived the revolution was going on, the technology had been around a long time. Smartphones have been around a long time before Steve Jobs stood up on stage and showed off the iPhone. Cloud, time sharing on mainframes had been around for decades before AWS and Azure came along and really captured people's imaginations. The same thing with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been around since the 1950s. The concept has been around since the days of Homer, this idea of thinking machines. But the reason we're starting to see a lot of hype around it now is because there have been some major advances in generative AI. A lot of it has to do with work done by our friends over at OpenAI and the products like ChatGPT that they've built, and DALL-E, things like that. So there's a lot of interest. They've made it more accessible to folks, and I think that's why we're seeing so much hype now around a technology that's been around for literally decades. All right, I'll start with a couple of definitions. I've thrown out some words like artificial intelligence. What does that mean? Well, it's just simply a way to try to make computers think like humans. When we're not there yet, but we're getting there. They're thinking more like humans. What I mean by that is they're able to learn from their mistakes. They're able to do some kind of reasoning, so you don't have to just give them step-by-step instructions as traditionally in computer science you've done. They're able to correct themselves. So if they make a mistake, you could tell them this information, this assumption, this reasoning you did is incorrect, and they'll do better next time. That's what artificial intelligence is. Generative AI, which is the part that's really been revolutionizing the last few years, this is a subset of artificial intelligence. This is the idea that we can take existing data like like text or images or audio, and a software can learn from that, and it can learn enough about that it can understand text, and it can generate new text, or it can generate a new image, an image that hasn't been created before because it's looked at an image. If we tell it, it's looked at so many pictures of kittens, because as you know, the internet is filled with kittens, that it can generate a picture of a kitten that isn't exactly like the ones that it's seen before, but it's still recognizable as a kitten. It can generate speech, it can generate text. And the text is really important right now, and I'm going to talk mostly about that tonight, because it uses what's called large learning models. And large learning models are this massive amount of text that your software can get trained on to start to understand natural language. And natural language are these human written and spoken languages like English. So a lot of times I'll just say English, and what I really mean is any natural language. It could be Japanese or Spanish or Arabic or French, whatever. I often just replace that with the word English because that happens to be my native language. But it works. This the same concept of being able to train a large language model on a set of lots of words and sentences and paragraphs, so that the computer can understand it. And there's one thing that's just happened recently is this idea of smaller language models, because large language models there are by, as you might expect, they're very large. So what are some use cases here for AI, things like increased productivity. I'll show you some examples using tools like Copilot that can do code generation, documentation of code, understanding code, working with some tools to understand data, process automation. This is big in just recognizing patterns, maybe fraud detection. If you've got lots of data, being able to very quickly determine if some financial transactions look like they might be fraudulent, or maybe looking to see if there's oh, uh, optimizing the workflow of something. Better customer experience. A lot of this has to do with chatbots. People sometimes get annoyed by this idea of an automated chatbot because it's not human, it's not very personal. But however, that's if the choice is between talking to a chatbot, getting your question answered quickly versus waiting in line for a human being to come on 20 minutes, that's an easy choice. Down there and turn right.
This one?
Yeah. And then creating content. This is the job of generative AI. If you want to create a document, create a presentation, create an email, artificial intelligence can help with that. It can really speed up that process. A lot of this stuff, a lot of these emails we send out, we spend a lot of time on them, and we can use tools and artificial intelligence to help with that. Azure, I happen to work for Microsoft, and Microsoft has a cloud computing platform called Azure. There are a whole bunch of tools here. Here's a partial list of them. I won't have time tonight to go through all these, but I'll show you a few demos of them. But there are things like Azure OpenAI, which can there's a set of APIs that you can use to do generative artificial intelligence to build your applications. Azure AI Search, which allows you to do intelligent search, so you can search using natural languages like English. Azure AI Services, you may already be familiar with this because it used to be called cognitive services. And these are very simple APIs that you can call that do things like optical character recognition, or speech to text, or text to speech, or sentiment analysis, all sorts of things like image recognition, facial recognition, all through just simple REST API calls. GitHub Copilot, this is probably the tool that I use the most, is a tool for working with code. I think there's probably a lot of developers on this call. Their job is to write or to read code. And this allows you to just give it some simple natural language instructions. Say, hey, write me a code that does this, and it'll give you some code, output some code in the language of your choice, using the APIs that you tell it about, and then also it can understand code, so you can explain this code to me, or write tests for this code, things like that. 365 Copilot, M365 is all the Office tools plus SharePoint plus Teams. There are all sorts of tools, artificial intelligence tools that help you work more efficiently within all those tools. Whisper is designed specifically for speech, for understanding and generating speech. Designer, same thing, but for images. If you want to generate images, I use this quite a lot in my PowerPoint presentations. In fact, in this one, you'll see a lot of images created by Designer. And then there's some low-code tools like Copilot Studio and Azure OpenAI Studio that without writing a lot of code, you can just tell it to index some of your data and generate applications that can create like chatbots or do searches of your own data. It's really powerful stuff without writing a lot of code. All right, I want to talk a little bit about search because I brought that up earlier. We're all familiar with search engines, Bing and Google. Generally, the way those things work is you'll type in a keyword and it'll search the internet for instances of that keyword. And it's smart enough to use variations of those keywords, so different forms of verbs and pluralization, and even synonyms. But it's limited. You have to really know what you're searching for. You have to type in kittens and it'll find images or articles about kittens. It's very powerful, but it doesn't understand natural language. And that's where one of the revolutions I've talked about is that ChatGPT and Bing Chat, these are tools that will allow you to search the web using natural language. So you can put in a question in your own language and it'll figure it out. It'll figure out, okay, what is this person asking for? And I'm going to provide information. And the information provided won't be just links, it'll be actual text, paragraphs of text that they can understand. So rather than going through and saying, all right, here's 5 links about the question I asked, let me read the articles those link to, and then I'll write my response based on that. Then what it can do is instead, it can do that for you. It can provide paragraphs of text for you. I want to talk a little bit about the RAG pattern um, and some hybrid search. Let me just go to the next slide to talk about this. So, I shouldn't have gone to the detail. Actually, the whole slide on this. Searching for kittens. That's great. It's really powerful, but it's limited. Here's Bing Cloud. Here's suggested outline for a presentation of artificial intelligence. I could type in keywords into Bing or into Google saying artificial intelligence, read some articles, and then create my own outline. But this is a nice Kickstarter for that. And you can see that the results are in English here. The RAG pattern stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And this is when you're not only using your natural language to search the internet, but you're using it to search other data sources. You're adding other data sources, and those data sources could be data sources within your own company. They could be documents, they could be databases, they could be systems, it could be inside of your SharePoint system, for example. And this is a really powerful tool because then you can use natural language to allow people to search through your internal systems. If they want to know, what are the HR policies around sick leave, they can ask that in a natural language question. It'll come back, it'll look at the index, the documents that describe that and describe it to them in a language of their choice. And this is, it does take a little bit of work to do this, but the whole idea is that there are tools like Azure AI Search, which you can use to query databases, documents, internal systems, and you'll have some sort of orchestrator which understands natural language, understands the prompt that the person enters, sends it off to the appropriate search, which will search the appropriate database. Maybe that's out on the internet, maybe it's some internal system, and return the results and format those results in a natural language. This is the idea behind the RAG pattern. And then, of course, whatever your user interface can return those. It can accept natural language and respond in natural language. This is closer to that science fiction thing that we saw in 1960s TV shows where Uhuru would just ask, computer, what do I do with, what do we know about this planet? And the computer would respond in English. That sounded like far-flung science fiction. We're there now in a lot of ways. All right, and then of course we can search both the internet and we can search for internal systems. That's what our orchestrator can do. It can be smart enough to say, this search is appropriate for just doing a keyword search on the internet. This next search item is more appropriate for I want to query the databases internally and return both. Maybe it's the query is appropriate for both. Maybe there's information on the internet and information internally that we want to return. Our orchestrator can do that, and there are frameworks to help with that. So here's a good example here. One of the companies I work with is called Elastic, and if they were to connect their orchestrator to use Azure Search to point to their own internal HR system, then somebody could say, how do I change my health benefits at Elastic? And it would come back and provide information about what are the steps they need to do. And you can see that it's providing it in English, nice natural language. All right, these are the Azure AI services I mentioned before. Does speech, text to speech, speech to text, does language translation, language understanding, vision analysis. So you can look at an image and tell me what's in that image. If are there people in that image? Does it recognize the people? It can do facial analysis to say, here's where the eyes, mouth, nose, and ears of that person are. It can do content moderation. That's a really nice tool that, if you will, allowing end users to upload content to your website. You probably want some kind of moderation on there. Make sure that they're uploading pornography or uploading hate speech. It can analyze that and have some automated processes in place to do that. It can do document analysis by understanding things like optical character correction, what is said in that document, and also what's the intent of that document. Is it if you're looking at reviews, for example, restaurant reviews, are these generally positive reviews? Are they generally negative reviews? Things like that. All sorts of powerful things, mostly with just really simple REST APIs that you can call. Copilot, there's this whole suite of Copilot tools that are available. I mentioned before, the one that I use most is GitHub Copilot that allows me to generate code, often in languages that I'm not familiar with at all. It's not perfect. It's sometimes it just gets you about 80% of the way there, but 80% is really, really nice. One of the reasons Microsoft bought GitHub is because for this ability to analyze all the public repositories in there. So there's a lot of code out there in GitHub. And so by reading that code, we can start to understand, oh, this is how the language of Rust works. It's got lots of examples of that. So if you ask it to write code in Rust, it has an idea of what good Rust code looks like. M365 Copilot, this integrates into all of the Office tools, plus Teams, plus SharePoint, plus I can't remember what else, but this is getting, there are actually some enhancements that just came out last week that are pretty cool. I'll show you. But that allows you to do things like analyze documents, create Word documents, create emails, ask questions about meetings that you could not attend. Oops, didn't do that. Working with Excel, some of the advanced features of Excel. A lot of people, Excel is such a huge product. There's some really cool features in Excel that nobody ever touches, but you can ask Copilot to do things and it'll get you started on that. And then Windows Copilot, which is kind of a general purpose tool, similar to Bing Chat, where you can just ask it questions, but it understands your internal system. So it not only can query the web, but it can find out information about your internal system. Tell me about this department or this person, who they work for, what time zone are they at, things like that. All right, there's more than that too. Oh, I don't have it here. Security Copilot's one that I didn't mention here that actually allows you to analyze the security of your system. Things like reading reading through potentially harmful scripts before you execute it. Tell me what the script does before I execute it, or analyzing some security threats, or looking at log files and saying, are there patterns in this log file that suggest somebody's trying to hack into my system? And once it determines that, either automatically taking action to stop that attack, or providing advice on how to prevent those attacks in the future. And there's also a lot of low-code solutions. Copilot Studio, Azure OpenAI Studio, and Azure AI Studio are all tools where, without writing any code at all, you can actually create an AI solution. I will show you a demo of one of those here. Where am I here? There we go. Responsible. I don't want to stop these. I only have a few more slides left, but I don't want to stop the slides without talking about responsible AI. This is an issue. I have a whole talk that I do just on responsible AI, but if you're building artificial intelligence solutions, whether you're somebody like Microsoft, which is building an entire platform, or whether you're just building something for your own organization, you need to think about these things. You need to think about the privacy and the security of your data and the privacy of that data. Are you allowing people to access information that they shouldn't access? Personally identifiable information, for example. If you're generating text, how is that? Is that text harmful? Is it inclusive? Are you, if maybe you're generating images that only represent white males because that's what your data set is built on. Think about those things. And as you think about them, make sure there's somebody responsible for them, because there will be problems. There will be issues. You realize, oh, if my data is biased, then my model's going to be biased and my output's going to be biased. Have some transparency about where the data came from, have some accountability about who is responsible for when these problems are brought to your attention, that they can be fixed. And just making sure that there is actual good information being provided. Some information, there are tools, there are settings you can do in artificial intelligence or a generative AI that what do you do if the model doesn't know the answer to the question you're asking? And there are some options. You can guess, you can have the model guess, or you can have the model say, I don't know, or you can have something in between there. And where you set those settings is important, and it depends really on what is the cost of a wrong answer. So if you're asking somebody, how do I uh, make this airplane so it can fly safely? Cost of a wrong answer is very, very high. If you're asking somebody, how do I generate this email, and they're giving a human being a chance to re-edit the email, to edit it after it's generated, the cost of a wrong answer is relatively low. You've got to expect that. So you need to think about those things here. All right. And people always ask about this. Um, if I'm using Microsoft tools to generate AI or to look at my code or look at my internal systems, are those, is that data that it's querying being put back into Microsoft's model? Because I mentioned before that the GitHub Copilot tools are built on by scanning through public GitHub repositories. Those are public repositories. That people have made a conscious choice to make them available to the public. A lot of the large language models are built on public data, like the queries that are done through Bing and all the data that Bing indexes. Um, your internal systems are not public; they're your own. And so Microsoft has made a promise that we will not share that data. We will not include that data into our models. And then, of course, there's things like the data is encrypted. Any data that's being stored is encrypted at rest, is encrypted at transmit. They're the basic things that you just expect in a secure system. But I think the question a lot of people ask is, are uh, is my data, if I'm using this, am I risking leaking my data to the outside world? Microsoft has made a commitment that no, that is not the case. All right, that's my slides. I'll stop here if there's any questions. Let me see, how do I get back to the chat? I see some stuff in the chat here. Someone showed a review. Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't see any questions right at the moment.
No question. All right. Let me move on here. I don't really use Zoom that often. So let's see what I can do here. Demos. Here we go. Oh, let's start with the Microsoft Designer. It's a nice, cool tool. Designer.microsoft.com right here. I think this is free. It's hard for me to know what's free and what's not because I sign up for things, but I think there's a waiting list where you sign up for it. At least there was like a year ago when I signed up. I'm already logged in here, but I think when you sign up, a day later they sent me an email saying you're good. Go ahead. But this is for designing images, and so I can do things like there's some specific things. I want to create a social media post or create a Teams background, things like that. But generally, I just use this images thing, and I could put in here just a description of what I want. I can specify what size I want. But here, there's a fox wearing a shiny jumpsuit, and that's something I could do there. How about a xenomorph drinking coffee at Starbucks, uh, wearing a top hat, and let's see, a predator is sneaking up behind him in the style of Van Gogh. And the more specific I can be here, the better an image is going to give me. So this sometimes takes 60 seconds. So let's wait for it to go. It's going to generate 4 images. They'll all be the same size right here. That's a thing of beauty right there. And so I can just click on download that. And in fact, actually, if I go back to my slide deck, this is where I think all these slides, they were all created by designer. All the images were created by designer. I decided, well, not that one, that's a screenshot, but all these images that look like that, I've been doing that more and more for my presentations. I want to slide. I used to go out and find, Creative Commons images out on the web. And then I realized, no, I can just create one. And it'll be very specific, exactly what I want. And if it doesn't do what I want, I could just have another image created. All right, so that's designer. I'm checking the chat. I guess you can see my screen here. $200. I think the Copilot, most Copilot is $20 a month. I think is kind of the general. Oh, $10 a month, $20 a month for the Enterprise Edition. I don't have that many. I don't have a lot of information on pricing. 100 values used for good. Other people are asking that question. Excellent. I don't like to memorize prices because they change so often. And so as soon as I memorize them, I say something, and you know, and then I'm wrong like 2 months later. All right, GitHub Copilot. This is a cool one here. I'm going to go into this right here, and I need
Hey,
to.
David,
What?
there's a question that came in that's a rather good one, and I didn't even think to ask this myself. Why do most of the images that are generated always have troubles with text?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. That's I wondered that myself. That's a good question. Um, yeah, that's. I think that's just AI is just not good at that. Let's see if I. There's no text in this image here, but I have noticed this as well. So what I do is I just avoid putting text in there. If I really need text, what I would do is just download the image and put the text in myself. This one came out. That one worked. So it seems to be getting better. But yeah, I've seen that where even uh, like OCR works fine. I mean, it's a different model that's using it, but they could integrate that. But what if I just said something like, uh, please create a sign telling people not to post rude videos during my presentation. Let's see if it generates text there. So I didn't tell it what text to generate. I just gave it an idea. So it's got to figure out, first of all, what sentence, and then we'll see if it even spells it right. Please do not please do not post rude videog. Still not great. I do not know the answer to that question. That's an excellent question. It seems to be getting a little bit better, but it's still far from perfect. All right, let's see. Start. This is a project. This is Visual Studio Code, and I've got the GitHub Copilot plugin running here. And if I go in here, I'll just create a file here. I'll call it Tulsa.ps1, just a PowerShell file, throw that in there. And I can start, one way I can do this, I can just start typing in Jan equals, $Jan equals 1. That's a variable. Sign the name Jan, sign the value of 1 to it. $Feb equals, look at it, it's guessing. It's, oh, maybe he wants 2 right there. And now maybe he wants $. It's noticing a pattern here. I'm just hitting tab now. I'm not typing this here. You see what's going here? That gray part is just advertising. So it's figuring out what I want. This is GitHub Copilot in action. Equals 6, July equals 7. That gray stuff there. I'm going to go all the way through all the months here. $, September equals 9, Oct equals 10, November equals 11. There we go. Here, and now it's even guessing what I want to do next, but I don't really want to notice something like. Here's another thing I do is I can put a comment in here and say something like create a hash table to store the nth names. Yeah, let's just do that. Create a hash table. That's fine. And or a shift enter. Let's see if it does that. Come on, come on, come on. Names. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't work. The other way I can do this is right click. Well, this demo's not going well. Let me do something else here. I'm going to say log into Microsoft Azure. This is a useful thing. Azure.net. And yeah, it's guessing what I want. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's set the Azure subscription. Come on, there we go. There's the PowerShell. But so this PS1 is a PowerShell, so it understands that I want to write things in PowerShell. Create a resource. That's pretty good. I'll just hit tab right there. That's the way I do it. It suggested the name of the resource group. Did I misspell Tulsa in here? I sure did. Oh well. But I'll call it Sean Resource Group. How about that? And put it in the central US right here. So I can change this. It's just suggesting things to me. Oops. Here. And so maybe I want to say, how about create a resource group if one does not exist? Because the one above would actually fail if this thing existed here. And here we go. So this one says, this is what you would do. You try to create it one, and if it doesn't return anything, then you create it. Or you start, so you get one, and if it returns a null, then you'll create it. Then only then would you create it. Things like that. All right, so I think you get the idea here that you can, that this is really powerful if I don't know PowerShell or whatever language I'm working on. It's a good way to learn it. Again, it might not be perfect, but it's getting me partway there. If it's getting me 80% of the way, that's a win for me. It's also, even if I do know it, maybe it's creating some plumbing code here that do I really want to type in all this code here? This is a win as well. All right, let me close that here. I won't save it. I can delete that. And what I want to do is in the, I think it's this pet proxy. Oh, I did this. I was playing with beforehand. Let me imagine I have this right here. This is an API that calls some URL. So I've got a client, get async, and it calls /pet/ID. So this, I pass it an ID, it calls out to another API, and it responds with a HTTP response. So it's going to come back here. And that response, it could be a 200 okay, it could be something else. Right now, it doesn't work well at all. It's not returning a string, it's not returning anything. So what I can do is add a comment in here and say, handle the case where the response is not successful. So here it's going to return, it's going to get a pet only if this returns a 200, something right here. That might be okay, but if I notice that I have over here, and I have another similar one here. Oh, actually, I did have that. Let me show you the other thing here I could do is if I do final, where's my, do I not have Copilot on here? What's this? Here we go. Right.
So while you're doing that, I'll point out too that because we were talking about GitHub Copilot, the help in the main code area, that code window, that's GitHub Copilot. The chat that David brought up is GitHub Copilot Chat or GitHub Copilot X. I don't remember which, because I think they changed the name on that too. That is, I don't remember if it's integrated now, but it's at least a year ago, it was two separate things. So now it's far more powerful now with chat in there, because now you can kind of give it, here's my requirements, here's what I'd like you to generate and things like that. Right quick, David, if you would, there's some people in the waiting room.
I just let Carl in. Hi, Carl. Is there anybody else?
I am here.
Hey.
Awesome.
It's very dark out on my back deck, though.
It's dark here as well in Chicago. All right. Let me see. This is not working for me, so I'm gonna skip to the next one here, and show you what's my next demo. All right, we covered Designer. Close that. GitHub Copilot. 360. I'm going to come back to that. Azure OpenAI. There's a really cool tool right here called OpenAI Studio. Let me see if I can do this demo here. If I go to, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the Azure Search demo. This might take a little bit of time because it's fairly complicated, but it's really powerful. There's a tool called Azure AI Search, and what I can do is I can create Azure AI Search right here. I keep saying don't show that again. I keep showing it to me. So right in here, this here, I've got a resource group called Tulsa Test RG right there. I'm going to call this one Tulsa Test Search X, because I had one here, put it in the central US. That sounds good. And I'll just go over here to review and create. You can also add some scaling and networking stuff in here, but just to make it fast, I'll come in here, submit it, and this comes up pretty quickly, I think. Deployment is in progress. If it doesn't, I have one that's already created. Yep, there it is, right here. And then I can import data into this search. And this is what I'm going to do here is I am going to import data. I'll show you right here. I've got some data, a bunch of documents already inside of Azure Storage. So before I started this, just before I got on this call, I created an Azure Storage account. Here, I created a blob container called reviews, and I uploaded a whole bunch of documents. So let me show you those documents here. They are, that's not it. They are here. So a bunch of Word documents. They all kind of look like this. Pictures with a review about coffee places. I love the coffee drinks here, but my favorite, blah, blah, blah. A date, location. This one happens to be in Seattle. I've got some of these are Word documents. Some of them are text files. Some of them are PDFs. Some of them are images. I think I got one image in here somewhere. Right there, there's an image right here with some text on it. So that's what I've uploaded here into this storage documents, this blob storage container, all of those documents in different formats that contain reviews of coffee shops. And what I want to do is allow people to search for that. So what I could do is I've just created this Azure search service, and I could go in here and say, I want to query Azure blob storage. And it says, okay, what's the name of that storage? I'll call it Tulsa reviews. And I want to extract just the metadata, just the, or I want both the content and the metadata. Parsing mode, I'll just take the default here. And I have to tell it where's the data that I'm looking at. So I'm going to go through here and choose it. And it is this one right here, Tulsa storage right here. And it asks me which container. What's that one right there? The reviews container that I just showed you. That's where all my documents are, all my reviews are. If I had folders inside of that container, I could tell it that. I don't. I can add these cognitive skills. It's going to validate. Well, if you notice, these are not enabled until it validates this tab. And so I could come in here and I could say, all right, can I do some things like that using cognitive service or using AI services? Used to be called cognitive services. And if I do that, I can add those kind of enrichments. So I can do, for example, optical character recognition. I can do, this one already has cognitive service or the AI services attached to it. But if I didn't have that, I could add it here. I want to do, let's see, data field. I'm going to call it merged content. What are my options here? Yeah, I want all the content. So on merged content, I'm going to use pages. That gives me a little bit more information about the context of it. And what kind of information do I want to extract from that? Well, if I just showed you the documents briefly, but there were no people names in there. There were no organizational names. So I'm not gonna look for that. There was a location in there. It said some of these things are in Seattle, some are in Chicago. Let me get some key phrases out of there. It's all in English, so I don't have to detect the language. So I'm gonna not skip that. I don't have to translate it. There's no personally identifiable information. I'll skip that. But I do want to detect sentiment because these are reviews. I want to say, is it generally a positive? Do they like the coffee place? Do they not like it? There are images in there. Let's see if we can do some things to generate tags from the images. And the output of this is going to be a JSON file. The JSON file will have these fields, and the names of those fields are assigned here: locations, key phrases, sentiment. I could change that if I wanted to. If I didn't like to be called sentiment, I could call it something else. Change that. But these defaults are pretty good. And once it's done this indexing it, I want to save it somewhere. And so I want to save it in a storage account. I'm going to put it right back into that same storage. I'll put it in the same container as well. And I'll save all this information in here. What else? Document what that? I'll save all this stuff here. And it's going to create this. What it's going to do is that when I search it, when I actually search these documents, I'm not searching the documents themselves. I'm going to index those documents. I'm going to search the index because the index will be a lot faster to search. And I can change the names of these indexes and these keys, but I think I'll just leave the defaults. And then I have some options down here. The data that's returned. By default, I'll return all the content, and I'll parse out the locations, the key phrases, and the sentiment. Is it positive or negative? Some of these other things. I can also return some of this metadata. Maybe I really want to see the word count on here. I also can allow filtering. So I want to allow people to filter on these. I'll just say anything that gets returned. I also want people to be able to filter on. So if they want to filter on the location, they can do so. So I'll just check all these things right here. And then I'll create an indexer. And I create an indexer for this demo. I'm going to say just run this indexer one time, and that will, the indexer creates the index. The index is what gets searched. But if I had some dynamic data that's constantly being updated, people are all the time adding new reviews to that, maybe I want to have that thing run every hour or every day, or I could do a custom thing to say every 15 minutes, whatever. For this demo, I'll just do it one time. But that's the idea behind it. And it kicks off this demo right here, or kicks off the indexer. And now all it's done right now is it started the indexer. If I go down to here, you can see that it's in progress. It doesn't really take very long because I don't really have that many documents there. But if I refresh this, within a minute, it should finish indexing this thing. Let me close this. Come on. Refresh that, in progress. Come on. Okay, now it's done. And now if I go, let me close. I don't like this thing. Can I get rid of that? Minimize. Get out of here. Oh, there's Carl. Hi, Carl. You're hiding, Carl. You're hiding my my X. That's what I want right there. All right, let me get back into.
I promise you, it was not intentional.
I know. I just needed somebody to blame, and there you were. So there's the index. I'm back in the search service here. Index succeeded, and it created an index. There's my index right there, right here. This is what I'm going to query right here. You get an idea. So in here, there's a nice little tool. I've got some. If I search for star, it should return everything. All this document. These are the fields that I told to return. It returned all as JSON. So there's some key phrases that parsed out of there. This is the first document. The sentiment, it was positive. Why was it positive? Because here's the content was fourth coffee has super options for food. That sounds pretty on the go. That sounds pretty positive to me. And you can see this is an array of every document that was in there. I think I had about 20 documents or so. But I can filter that further, and I've got in my notes here somewhere, right? Oh, shoot. In my notes somewhere right here. Oh yeah, here's a filter right here. Say I only want to see those documents that are, not there. I don't know how to hit Control C. Control C. Thank you, David. Control V. There we go. And so now I filtered it. And now, so this information is only those documents that said the location was Chicago. Or maybe I only want, so here's one sentiment is negative. Sure enough, today I was truly disappointed with how long I had to wait for the pastries. And it did this for, it doesn't have to go back right now in real time. That came back really fast because it didn't go out and query all those Word documents and all those PDFs and all those text files and those images. It just looked at the index itself. It was able to return that data. Yeah. So if I wanted to, for example, filter on this right here, then I only get the negative reviews. So here's one. This one is negative. The great thing about this is that there's an event space for talks. I went to, that doesn't sound negative, but focus on giving students, but there must be something negative in here. Research, the event room is also, so hard to tell why they thought it was negative, but it decided that, be aware that weekends it can get really crowded, which I don't like, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so this is the kind of things you can do, and there's an API for doing that. In fact, if I click on, well, you can also see the JSON here. It came back. It's probably a little bit easier to see, but what I really wanted to do was create a demo app. And if I do this and come in here and specify some, what do we have? The title would be probably, how about locations for the title? Description is probably the content. Thumbnail. Did I save the images? I can't remember. Layout, text, image tags, image caption. I don't think I have a good tag for images, but come through here and go through this. You can change the style if you want, but this actually will generate an HTML page with some JavaScript behind it, so that if I said, show me this, then it'll give me something with a, yeah, the image didn't like the image tag I fit, but it gave me returned some values about something that's sentiment is negative. And we can look at the source code of this thing here. I go to the downloaded file, let's download it here, right there, just open in Visual Studio Code. This gives you an idea, the relevant part of this gives you an idea of how to call this stuff. A lot of this is just HTML, but the framework is here in this right here, azsearch.js. And you can see that it contains an object called azsearch.automagic. And once we get that object, then there are methods on there like add results and add pagers. Add results is really how we're going to do this. So you can take this and use this as a model for how to call that API from your JavaScript applications. So this is pretty powerful. You didn't have to do a lot to generate the model to get search working. A lot of the heavy lifting is being done for you through Azure. Close that off. What was my next demo I was going to do? Slides. I want to show some of these M365 Copilot stuff. This is kind of cool here. Let's see. I'll show you a brand new feature. This is really cool. This is new last week. If we go into, here, let me close this and reopen it. And I'm going to open up this spreadsheet right here. So if you're using Excel, Excel has so many features that you probably never used before, but Copilot can help with those. And in order for Copilot to work, of course, you have to have Copilot. They have to have a license for Copilot, and you also have to have its autosave on, which is a feature of OneDrive. So those are prerequisites for this. But I click, if you have Copilot here on the home ribbon, you'll have this Copilot button right here. And you can do something like, this is the 2022 Argentina national soccer team. And it has a player name and a bunch of information about them and some statistics like dribbles per 90 minutes, interceptions per 90 minutes, tackles per 90 minutes, and so on. So what I want to do is to say something like highlight player name if dribbles is greater than either interceptions or tackles. All right, so this may be a measure of their efficiency. Are they doing lots of dribbles, but not getting some, interceptions and tackles about? I want to know stuff like that, and it'll think about it, and it says, "This is what I'll do if you want me to," and I'll click apply. Yeah, that sounds really good. I'm going to do that. I want you to highlight in that color right there, and there it did it. So, for example, the first row. The dribbles are 0.33. That is not higher than either of these two numbers here. The second row, 1.45, is higher than interceptions, and therefore it highlighted that one. So it went through there. Julian, his dribbles 0.58 is higher than 0. So now, if you knew how to do this, you could do this yourself, but it's not a hugely complicated thing to do. You'd have to go into this column right here. You have to know that it's conditional formatting, and conditional formatting is here on the home tab, and you come on here. It's not one of these really simple ones here. It would be one of these, you go to a new rule and specify a formula here. In fact, that's the formula right here that it does right here. So it's a conditional formatting thing, moderately complex. And it can help me, it can get me there, partway there. Here's something even more complex in Excel. I just learned how to do this, so I think it's really cool. Here's a spreadsheet with a bunch of inventory data. So we got dates in 2022 and 2023, and for each one of these days, we've got a region, a city, a category, a product category, and a product itself. So it's all food. So these are whole wheat crackers, these are chocolate chip cookies, and then the inventory quantity on hand as of that date, the unit price, and then just the extended quantity times unit price, the suspended price, the value of the quantity on hand. So on January 7th, 2022, this company had $108 worth of chocolate chip cookies in Los Angeles. So interesting stuff, but how can we use that data? Copilot can help. I click on Copilot here. You notice there's a few buttons right here, and you see in a lot of Copilot, they'll have some suggestions on what to do. One of these is advanced analysis. And if I click on Start Advanced Analysis, notice that it's going to add a new worksheet right here. And it shows a preview of the data that it's going to work with. And this is a data frame. So data frame is really a Python concept. And in fact, what's going on, Excel supports Python. So Excel supports text, numbers, formulas, but also supports code. And that code can be Python. And so you can see there's the code right there to do this. Let me just get it right. It's a real simple one. But let's do something interesting with this. Like I'm going to copy and paste from my notes here. Right here. Right here is I want to say, show the monthly total value for each region over time. The price for each category be aggregated by month and displayed in a line chart. So even though there's 2 January things for the East region, I only want to have one value for January, and I want the total price, and I want to plot that. And I'm going to use Copilot to help me do that. Look at that, 15 seconds, it's done. How many of you could do that in 15 seconds? Even if you know Python really well, which I do not. And check this out. Up here, there's the Python code. So even if it wasn't perfect, you say, you know what, I want to change this a little bit, then you can change that. You can edit this Python code and change it. I won't do that. It's too risky. And then you can do more. Maybe just plotting it isn't enough. Maybe I want to do something like this. On the same chart, forecast each region's total value for the first 6 months of 2024, because you'll notice it only covers January 2022 through December 2023. It ends in 2023. I want to forecast what's coming up. Now it's doing some machine learning. Or it will. Come on, come on. Don't make a liar out of me. Let's try that one more time. Because that's the definition of insanity. Come on. On the same data, that's right. Yeah, okay, come on. Try once more. There you go, because the definition of insanity is trying the same thing again and again, expecting different results. And value of each forecast, it says that it is, and there's that, but I don't see it. Why don't I see that? Do I need to extend it? Maybe I can tell this here. Extend the graph to show 2024. Let me try that. I haven't tried this. Almost there. Come on. Yeah, you've been almost there for a while. Come on. And and there it is. East, west. So now the labels are not quite right. And so it is showing 2024 now, which I don't know why I didn't do that before. But it isn't showing, it isn't obvious that's the forecast. But I can, this is retaining context. So I can ask more, ask it to improve it. I select that graph and I'll say, explicitly label the forecasted data on the chart for each region. Use the same color for the actual and forecast lines. It did do that. Make the forecasted lines 4 times as thick and dashed. I wanted to make sure. I saw something that had like this happen the other day, and I wanted to make sure it was obvious what was forecast and what was not forecasted. So I wanted the chart to look different for actual data versus forecasted data. But what's nice about this is I didn't have to redo the first part of it. It understands the context. It's part of a conversation. And you see this a lot in Copilot tools right here. So now it made a dashed line. It made a forecast line. It didn't actually do the same color as I asked it to. It went from orange to red and from blue to green. So it's close, but still, this is a lot of time saving stuff. So maybe what I want to do after this is just go into the code here and use my Python skills to actually modify that code. So this, even if it's not perfect, it saves me a lot of time because it gets me started on this. I think this is really cool. This is really powerful stuff here. I'm not sure how many people are even using the features of Python inside of Excel to create your macros, but even if you know that feature, you still have to be proficient enough at Python to do this. And even for that proficient, this saves you a ton of time. All right, I did see some chats. Let's see if I can.
I'll mention right quick
Somebody doesn't want to let go of VBA.
I do use M365 Copilot, and I mentioned the pricing on there. It's like $20 a month for the personal plan, and the family M365, it's like 5 users, up to 5 users or something like that. And it's $100 a year. So, but I use it. I use Copilot. I love it. You can open a Word document and you got Copilot right there in the document. It'll help to anywhere from like generating some ideas to spell checking, things like that, rewriting some things. And then I wrote a giant document. I say giant, I mean, it's like maybe 13 or so pages. And then I took it over to PowerPoint, and then it created a presentation based on the document. That so it opened the document file. I did have to save it into like OneDrive and give it a
Yep.
public access, a shortcut to it. But I was able to use PowerPoint to look at that file and create a presentation from it.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
that I mean, for $20, even if you only use it for 1 month, $20, and you've got a fantastic start on creating some presentations. So I won't say it's perfect. I won't say it's going to just do everything I need, but it's a great start and certainly worth the cost.
Yeah. So here's something you might want to do. You want to write an article on, I said, write an article about the advantage of using Azure OpenAI. And here it came up with a 6-paragraph article with a lot of this. And I say, and I can sell it, so I could copy this and paste it right into my Word document. This is Copilot, M365 Copilot within Word. But let me just go ahead and copy and paste it in here. But I can also, tell it things like, this is too long, shorten it to 3 paragraphs. Right here. And I think Sean was talking about this, is that I could take this, and if I save it in OneDrive, then I can go into PowerPoint and say, create a presentation based on this document. And it'll create a set of slides based on the document. I might be able to do that. Let me see if I can do that here. I won't save that, but I'm sure I have some documents that I can use that aren't too secret. Let's see, if I say in PowerPoint, create a presentation based on, hit the slash, and it brings up people, files. Files is what I want. Here's this is just a D&I workshop that I sometimes do. Involves Legos, and there's a document that describes how to do it. It's telling me the outline it's going to do, which I'm going to guess will be these the slides that it'll create.
Yeah, look at that. It's even adding speaker notes. I love that.
Yeah, isn't that really cool? And this is, I probably wouldn't just save and be done. I would want to look at this and tweak it. But oh my gosh, how much? This is 23 slides. And if 23 is too much, I could say, shorten this to only 10 slides, or, this about provide more detail on slide 5. It retains the context of this stuff.
And also too, if you have like you do a brand new presentation and you pick some slide theme and then import from a file or something like that with Copilot, it retains the theme and applies the content on top of that. But I love that. It even grabs the pictures that are relatively relative to the content, etc.
Here's another really cool thing. This works with Word documents. So somebody handed me this 23, or maybe sometimes I get these 300-page, or not 300, but I get over 100 slides. I can't read through that. I gotta talk about this in 10 minutes. I just understand summarize this presentation. And you can do this with a long Word document as well. Sometimes it's really helpful. You can do this in Outlook. You can say, let me bring in Outlook here. Well, I'll wait till this is done. But you ever get somebody sends you this, forwards an email thread that's like 15 pages long. It's been going on for weeks, and they want you to respond to it. You got to read through the whole thing to figure out even what they're talking about. Oh, here we go. This is here's a summary of the deck. So here's the main points of this deck. So if somebody just hands this to me and I want to understand it quickly, I've got to run into a meeting or summarize it for my boss, this is a really helpful tool. Same thing with if I get a long email thread, summarize this email thread. This is something that I use sometimes. I get new email. Where's the Copilot here? Message here. Address book dictate. Oh, there it is. Copilot. So I can draft a Copilot right here and say, you know what? Send a message to the customer explaining the project is delayed because we received the requirements last week. Be polite and apologetic. Things like this, sending something to a customer, you probably spend a lot of time. You want the tone to be right. You want to be respectful. You want it to sound good. It's not going to send it. You can still have a chance to review it. You can hit keep and it'll actually put it in the email. If you don't like it, you can regenerate it. If you hit adjust, then you've got some things, make it longer, make it shorter, some things like that. Make it a poem. Let's do that. The customer will love you for that. I like that. There we go. So send that to Carl Franklin right now. And let them know that the project is late. So this is just really, really helpful stuff. I think, where are we at time here? 7:46 p.m. my time. I'll show you one more cool thing. I have one last demo. It's another thing in M365. And in this, we will I'll show you in Teams. And I've got a link here. People are coming out of my user group here, so it's getting a little loud. But I created, what I did is in Teams, I created my friends and I created a dummy meeting. And we recorded it. So if you turn on, you don't have to record a meeting for Teams to work, but you do have to turn on transcripts. So here's a recording of a meeting that we did a few months ago. We pretended like we were organizing a code camp, a one-day code camp. And this link's on here, just recap the meeting. That's kind of nice. What was talked about. I totally missed the meeting. I want to catch up. Tell me what was going on. And it looks at the transcript, and even though this meeting was somewhere it tells me how long it was, but I think it was about a 30-minute meeting, and it tells the key points of that. And even links to exactly where. So the conference promotion, we talked about, Peter took responsibility for this, promoting it, how he's going to do it. And if I want more details, 6 minutes and 38-second point.
So you'll put out the call for speaker.
That is when he talked about this stuff. I can ask questions like who attended the meeting. I can ask, who is responsible for food? What do we decide about getting speakers? I can ask questions in natural language, and it'll tell me these things. This is, I don't know about your company, but my company, we have so many meetings scheduled. I physically don't have time to. I don't have a time turner to get to every meeting. And yeah, they're recorded, but I literally don't have time to watch every meeting that they want me to understand. But often that's what I'll do. I'll just summarize the meeting and, what are the next steps for David Giard? That would be an important thing for me to know. Maybe that's the only thing I really want to know about this meeting. So you can ask questions like this, and I'll give you that. So look at that. I want to know. I'm supposed to confirm the cost for the convention center, find pricing for restaurants nearby, and then I'm going to do the call for speakers. That was my job. Good. Peter and Rachel, they're going to do their thing. But the next meeting, I want to make sure at a minimum I do that stuff. This is super powerful stuff. I use this all the time. All right. I think those are some good demos. That's probably a good place to stop. I will show, before I leave, if you want to look at these slides, they are right there. tinyurl.com/DGAI slides will get you there, or you can just take a picture of that barcode, that QR code. And that's there. I'll leave that up for about 15 seconds while you write that down. And some more resources. So once you have the slides, all sorts of other resources you can get to in here. Those links will be there for you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, David. That was awesome. Yeah, I love that. That was great. All right, last chance for questions. Anybody have a question for David?
It's 5 things in the chat. What's a vacation? This is from a guy named Joe Guadagano. Does anybody know him? Was he? Who invited that
I've heard of him. I've heard of that guy. No, I was mentioning that, like, for as an example, if you coming back from a long vacation or a vacation and you got a conversation you need to get caught up, an email conversation when you get caught up on, that's a great example of getting caught up on those with Copilot.
There was some context in that question. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Even if you're not on vacation, some of us just drown in meetings and emails, and it's just it takes too much time. So what do we do? Yeah, I come back from vacation. What do? Usually Control-A, delete, just punt, declare email bankruptcy, and start over again. Well, there might be some.
If you ever find yourself with Joe Daguadano after hours, he's a great karaoke singer.
Really? I wish I had known this when we were together in Colorado.
Thanks, Carl.
Oh, he's there. Hey, Joe.
Oh, how embarrassing.
I don't know. I think we might need some proof. And the recording's still on too, by the way. Awesome. Thank you, David. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for doing this presentation while you're actually running your own user group.
Yeah, I see that people are leaving. I'm not really running, I'm just hosting it.
Okay.
But I see people are leaving, so the speakers must be done.
All right. I will go ahead and stop the recording from here and formally wish everybody goodbye. And but hang out afterwards. We'll have our after party and go from there. So our next meeting, October 24th, I believe, and that is Thursday with Michael Perry. Other than that, thank you all for attending.